Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to TableTakes presented by Gen Con. I'm Christian. With me this week is Kristen, Emma, and Derek. Welcome, everybody. Glad we're all here.
Yeah.
We made it.
Yeah.
What are our jobs this week? Look at the screen and find out. Okay. So we are going to start off hot today. Hot with some RPG stuff, which is, as we know, my bread and butter. Free League Publishing is releasing an Alien RPG. Why is this exciting? Well, Alien hasn't had an RPG for 20 years. So the last one was released in 1989. Finally, we are getting back to having xenomorphs kill all of our favorite player characters. But this game is going to be a little different than our traditional RPG in a couple of ways. The first way of being being introduced with two different modes, which is where my excitement for this game comes from. The first, obviously, is their new cinematic mode, where it's designed for one-shot adventures, comes with pre-generated characters. You are not expected to live through said adventures because it's about xenomorphs.
Surprise.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're using very interesting terms for the different modes. And it should be clear that, like, when they say cinematic mode, it doesn't seem like they're talking about, like, dumbing down the rules or reducing how you play a role-playing game.
Nope.
It's just a way to frame a one-shot where you expect to replicate kind of the cinematic experience of the movie, in which case you don't survive, really. Or you have one person who survives.
Unless you're the one smart lady that nobody
Yeah.
listens to.
Spoilers. Spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers.
for-
The movie came out, what, like 40 years ago?
Before-
This is its
I
40th
have not
anniversary.
seen it.
Right, but you have had plenty of opportunities
But
in
there's
your...
also a lot of
The cat lives, it's okay.
there's also a lot of pre-made
But that's
content for it.
The smart lady and her cat.
That's fine. I don't mind people dying in movies. It's animals dying in movies that I can't do anyway. So
Never,
I'm in on this
ever
RPG.
kill the dog. I learned that the hard way.
You know what? I backed the Cats and Catacombs last week, and I'm excited. So can I play my cat Minnie in this alien game to play the cat that survives?
Yes.
Probably.
Yes.
We're just going to go ahead and say yes on that?
Yes. Because there's another mode that's just a normal RPG where your GM can do whatever crazy crap that you apparently want them to do.
And they're calling that campaign mode because it's like running a traditional RPG campaign. You create a character that you hope sticks around for longer than one adventure. And, you go and, I guess, battle aliens in the galaxy or more likely run from them and get eaten.
Yeah.
That's
Not
how
a lot of
Alien
battling.
works.
Or you play the corp
happening.
people who are trying to recover one.
They are, but they're
Yeah.
but they're using the cinematic mode to kind of focus on some new story elements that they're doing. They're placing the events that take place. Basically, you're in a little window between Alien 3 and Alien 4, which people don't believe exists. And and so you get to kind of have that experience of just being completely terrified for a few hours until you're dead.
Wow,
That's I think that's why we all play role-playing games, right?
wow.
Yes.
Well, I mean, like that formula has worked real well for Call of Cthulhu.
Right.
So depending on how they present this, I think it could work really, really well. Like I'm very excited just because Free League has a very good history with other games.
Yes, and that's the thing that actually makes me not scared about playing this is the fact that it is made by Free League. They have a very, very big focus on artistic endeavors, so everything is going to look great. We know that from
Yeah.
the very beginning, and plus,
Yeah, all the promo art that they put out, the trailer that they've made.
check
all of
out
it
the
looks
trailer,
gorgeous.
by the way. It's pretty cool.
I'm impressed for a role-playing game to have something. I think they really captured it because they just took the art. They did a lot of really quick cuts. Like they got the atmospheric feeling of this role-playing game without necessarily being like, and here's pictures of books and pages. It's not quite as visually exciting.
Yeah, so like Free League has worked on they've released a bunch of great stuff recently.
Tales from the Loop
Tales
being
from
the
the
biggest.
Loop is the one that I think has gotten the most attention, and that is very much like a Stranger Things kind of vibe, 80s, but with like advanced technology and giant robots and stuff like that. I think
it.
I think it does tie into this pretty well
I always
because
thought Iron Giant.
yeah, like Iron Giant would kind of fit there.
I get that reference.
But
You're welcome.
The Tales from the Loop game came with kind of a series of adventures as part of the Kickstarter that was a pretty like set campaign. It came with a specific setting that was a specific small town. It had a map for that town and stuff like that. So it's neat that they're kind of like, it doesn't sound like Alien is doing an RPG system differently. but it sounds like they're trying to present the experience a little bit differently, focusing on those one-shots, kind of, assuming that people are going to play it, and a lot of, similar to how a lot of people say play Call of Cthulhu or something like that, where you don't really expect your character to survive indefinitely.
But for that reason, it's it'll be great to play on on game night when you're missing one player and you
exactly.
can't go on with the campaign. Like, hey, let's.
Honestly, I would love to play more one shots.
Yeah.
Like teasing aside about the content of Alien, like I would be super interested in playing one shots because I think and Derek knows this about me. We've been playing Dungeons and Dragons together for years. Or more realistically, I've been canceling on Dungeons and Dragons.
Your fear of commitment.
Yes.
We understand.
Yeah, so I need more one-shots in my life, for sure.
And I've been doing a lot of them lately, and they've been really, really fun. And I've always been more of a persistent campaign kind of guy, but one-shots have their place, and I'm definitely on board with them. This game is going to be coming out later this year. Guess what? There's no Kickstarter for it, so you don't have to back it. It's just coming out.
You can just buy it.
You're welcome.
Just in the world to purchase.
Yeah.
So you can buy it whether you are adult.
Do we know when it's coming out?
It just says later
later
in
this year.
2019.
Well, I mean, we only have half the year left.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Presumably the latter half of 2019.
presumably.
For some reason,
Or
people
go
like
back
to
in
release.
time.
People do like to release games around August for no good reason at all.
Weird.
I know it's
Yeah.
strange,
Weird.
but it does
Weird
happen.
So the other thing that I just want to note is like Free League seems to kind of be the standard bearer for a real big push of RPGs coming out of Scandinavia. I think Sweden in particular. I think we've touched on this before, but the RPG scene and the LARP scene, there's a lot of amazingly really cool things coming out of Sweden.
Yeah.
Norway, things like that. People may have heard the term like Nordic LARP or Nordic game, things like that.
You use it a lot, actually.
So when those there's a lot of really cool stuff coming out, and I really hope people will check it out. Basically,
And they have a very Scandinavian sounding name with like the Free League Publishing. It just it's like, oh yeah, that might be Norwegian. So yes, you can buy this game sometime later this year. No Kickstarter, and it's there for nostalgia. It reminds us of a dark time, but some things remind us of other things. For example, Emma, you remind me of the Babe.
what babe?
The Babe with the power.
What power? We're gonna stop there.
Yeah, we're going to.
That's like below the
I think anything further
15
than that, and
seconds,
they
yeah.
take our video down.
I hope chat is up in flames that we stopped there and did not finish.
They can do it in chat. It's not our responsibility at that point. On the other end of the spectrum, there is a new Jim Henson's Labyrinth adventure game, which is not quite a role-playing game. It's a role-playing type adventure game.
Is that like chocolate flavored cereal?
Well, it reminds me of like this is cheese food product.
Cheese food product.
You're making it sound bad, though.
I love cheese food products. Do not badmouth cheese food products.
I'm very excited about this as a lifelong devotee to the
Cheese food
cult
product?
of David Bowie.
It's not
the
really.
Goblin
It's not a
King.
cult. It's a kingdom.
I pledge my fealty to this kingdom, unto the kingdom. And just for some of the arts, if you like, the movie is amazing, like the characters. If you ever go and look at some of the adjacent products for that, Brian Froud in particular
Yeah,
was
the
the conceptual
designer. Yep.
artist for these things. Like, they've released all sorts of art books, and they're just beautiful just to page through and see where all the inspiration for these characters came through. So for that alone, I think it's going to be a gorgeous piece of art. But it's also going to be puzzles. So there's a role-playing element to it where you can presumably role-play within the Labyrinth universe, but the core part of the book itself is going to be a bunch of interlocking scenes and puzzles. You're going to do about a third of them at a time. You're going to be solving them and going through an adventure over the course of the 13 hours, presumably in game time.
I'm assuming that's in-game time, not like
as opposed
real-world
to
time.
Yeah.
Honestly,
In real time.
I'm in on this.
Yeah.
Well,
It
because
looks great.
it's
And it's got rules for making characters.
Yeah.
So
well,
I mean,
it's a hardcover book. It's going to have a bunch of cloth bookmarks, but like
the art's going to be amazing.
You make a character. You're going to have stats. There are some dice, but it sounds like you basically take that character through a non-infringing choose-your-own-adventure thing with some mechanical support for it. So
Find your own path.
Yeah, find your own path, blaze your own trail.
Your own journey.
So it seems really intriguing. And then there was the note that if you want to like turn this into a real RPG, it doesn't sound like it fully supports that. It sounds like it will have some inspiration for that.
Yeah.
So it does sound like I don't know, like, it sounds like perfect if you have some young kids that you want to start getting into role-playing games. You know, maybe
Yes.
watch the
That's
the right
movies
way to end that sentence.
and play through the game with them. It seems really intriguing to me.
And then you can get the Labyrinth board game. There are many Labyrinth board games, but one in particular that is a cooperative board game and
No.
has the minis characters
I'm out. All
in
right.
there.
I'm demiking. I'm leaving.
Well, how are you going to make it competitive? Well, it's competitive against Jareth, right? You're fighting.
I can make
together.
anything competitive.
Well, I mean, you know, if there was a version of the board game where it was 1 versus many and she could play Jareth,
Ooh,
that might
yes.
satisfy her.
I would be
There is
really
a
into that.
version. If you play with 5 players, then
See?
you can play
There we go.
Jareth and the rest of the players.
She's back in.
play
She's
Jareth.
remiked everybody. She thought she was out, but we pulled her back in.
I just want to be Sir Didymus.
I don't like cooperative.
Yeah, you can be Sir Didymus.
Yeah, good. That's all I want. When I grew up, that's what I wanted to be.
Yeah.
Ludo. It's all Ludo. So,
So good.
speaking of being back in the game, Kristen.
Right?
Yep. It's my turn.
Yep.
Yeah. Pro segue. Achieve.
Is it my turn?
So this is actually an interesting headline because Steamforged Games, people often know them from Guild Ball, right? And Guild Ball is this giant property. It's just a fun miniatures game. You know, it's like high stakes soccer,
Yeah.
kind of like
I like that's a good
Murder
picture.
soccer.
murder soccer.
High stakes
Yeah.
murder soccer.
Yeah,
I think
high
the key
stakes.
point that always stood out to me that I love about that game is you have a model for your mascot for your team.
I love it.
So like they have like a little otter mascot or a little
Yeah.
chicken or pig mascot.
Yeah. So
And it can go and fight with the rest of them. Excellent.
Guild Ball. If you're not on Guild Ball, go get on that Guild Ball, or at least check it out online. But maker of Guild Ball, Steamforged Games, they recently raised $6.5 million from an investment group in London.
How did they do that? Were they pretending to be Critical Role?
No, then it would be closer to $10 million because we don't have anything better to do with our money, right? No. Anyway, and we're back. So what's interesting about this, right, is that Steamforged has been dabbling, I would say, in licenses like Devil May Cry, Dark Souls, and I'm guessing that this investment has a lot to do with making a much bigger splash in the gaming industry. And judging by the fact that they got so much from a private investor, I'm willing to bet they've got a pretty darn good game plan.
Well,
So
they've
Either that or
announced,
additional a really, really wealthy edgelord.
they've announced that they are planning, I think, 8 games in the next 2 years. And considering the announcements they've had recently, it sounds like that's really going to push towards like board game adaptations of video game properties or well-known properties and stuff like that.
with, I mean, and of course with like miniatures that are just out of this world.
Yeah.
Just out
Yeah,
of,
the Dark Souls
they're-
ones are really, really good.
And like the Guild Ball minis, aren't they made out of metal? I feel like
Some of them, I think, in the beginning were, yeah.
Yeah,
I think most
like-
of them are plastic or might be resin now.
In any case, they are fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Like just so detailed.
Even
so
if they're not
beautiful.
made of metal, they are super metal.
They are super metal.
They are very
absolutely.
metal.
So I'm really excited to see how Steamforged 1 moves forward with this investment. Also interesting is that Ian Livingstone. Livingstone.
I think we concluded Livingston.
Livingstone.
Livingstone. So he is the co-founder of Games Workshop, which you also might have heard of.
Maybe.
He's joining the board as a non-executive member, so probably in a strategy input role, I would guess. That's my
Yeah.
hot take there.
One
which
would
is really
presume
exciting.
that he has a lot of experience in growing a miniatures company. So it seems like they anticipate a
One
whole lot
would
of
think.
growth.
Well, it's cool just to see investment in a board game company because obviously like video games, big business, like lots of movers and shakers, but investment in particular where it's giving money with a presumption of a higher return upon
It's
that
just
money.
not how things are done anymore.
That's not how we do it in the board
We
games
only
a lot of
do
times.
Kickstarters.
It's a guys. It's a move. It's not a movie. It's a board game.
There's a lot of kind of squeaking by with the profits here, and we're seeing a lot. Like we've talked in recent shows about companies collapsing or combining or being
Right.
bought out. So it's really cool
By
to
Asmodee.
see.
Basically.
Bought out by Asmodee.
But, you know,
sure.
Asmodee was also bought by a very large private equity firm.
Yeah, yeah.
So, like, you know, we're kind of reaching the era where the hobby, the consumer base, I think, has grown to the point where much larger businesses are being aware that there are opportunities here.
Yeah, yeah. So it's exciting to see more money coming into the hobby because I think there's going to be new things on the horizon with that.
I want to see what Steamforge does with that money.
Yeah.
Because they could do some. I
Absolutely.
mean, like the thing is, like, miniature production is just very expensive. You have to, like, there's molding, there's a lot of manufacturing that goes into it. So with that kind of investment in capital, it'll be really intriguing to see what they can do to, you know, do new crazy designs. You know, increase their production speed so they can get games out faster. It'll be intriguing.
But it can also go either way. Like the question is, are they still going to? Because some of these games have been kickstarted. Are they still going to do Kickstarters? Are they still going to get proof of concept, or are they just going to make stuff like say like, oh, we have the money, we can just put stuff out there now? So you know that can be a little bit risky, not following this more traditional Kickstarter model of getting things proven.
So clearly, that half of the table
Yeah.
has something going on. This half of the table.
No, the whole
this half of the
conversation-
table is
the whole
business,
conversation that you
numbers,
just had-
numbers.
I just want to talk about the business side.
No.
of it.
And everyone heard you.
But the camera was on Kristen the whole time.
We had some tech issues that looked like
It was pretty funny to me. I'm just
I
like,
was like, keep smiling.
You're like,
Nice. Don't pay attention to the chat right now. It was the Kristen show. All right. Anyway, moving on. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see.
yeah,
You know,
it can
what
go
they
either
do.
way for
Absolutely.
like having the money, using the money wisely, or just going and blowing it all at Vegas.
Well, I mean, considering that they have
I hope they would.
they have somebody from Games Workshop on their board,
Yeah.
and the private equity firm does also have somebody on the board now too. So I suspect that if they're going to go to Vegas and blow all their money, they're at least bringing the private equity firm with them
Yeah.
to
Now,
have a fun time.
if you need some money to blow when you go to Vegas, there's a way to win that now, I hear. Is that real? Like
Winning money in
there's a
Vegas?
way there's a way to win money so you can go blow it in Vegas. That has something to do with games that Emma was going to tell us about today.
There, yeah, for the the Mythic Magic qualifier. This is the first time they're doing it on MTG Arena. So they're doing the Mythic Championship on Arena, and what's really exciting about this is you can actually play.
Qualify at home.
Yeah, you can qualify in this tournament. They're going to be playing it May 25th through 26th, where they actually have on Saturday and Sunday, you go in the top 1,000 people, actually. So if you want to be part of this, you're going to have to start grinding the ladder, because only the top 1,000.
No.
Go
This
back
is an attainable goal. I'm going to
Yeah.
start playing Magic Arena today, and I'm going to win that money.
Well, no, I'm going to win that money. Because I'm already playing Arena. I'm solid silver,
Okay, I'll tell you what.
bottom of gold tier.
If
So
you
that's
will
probably
teach me
enough.
how to play Magic, then I will win that money.
Well, you have to get through me first.
That's funny.
To get to it.
So here on the Gen Con TV channel, I don't know if you knew, but I used to teach people to play Magic through Magic Arena for a few months. It was fun.
I bet it was.
Yeah.
I probably could have used a few lessons.
Well,
Go back and watch the
I only
video.
play red because it's my favorite color, and that's the only reason.
There.
I
Red's pretty good
am
right
not
now.
surprised
So-
by that in the
I want the game to be over quickly, so if I can just throw 5 turns as long as I want to play a game of Magic.
So as for the details of this, the
Yep.
top 1,000 players in Arena are invited to the qualifier. So those players are going to go head to head day one. You're going to get either 8 wins or 2 losses.
Yeah, so day one is kind of an automated queue, though, is what it
Yes,
is.
yeah.
So those top 1,000 players. So if you want to qualify, grind your way up in the leaderboards now.
Yeah.
And then day one is like a general queue. People are kind of like filtered through, and you're. I think you play until you have the 8 wins or 2 losses, and then presumably they're going to kind of sort and filter people out after that.
Yeah, and of the winners, there's going to be a Swiss play until 16 qualifiers are determined. So if you just do really good, if you get all your wins right away, you're going to go automatically, and then they're going to grind out the last few people as well. What I'm really interested to see is what the expectation of this is going to be. If they're streaming anything, or if it's just, because I looked on their channel, I didn't see anything in particular. the actual Mythic Championship is most definitely going to be streamed. It's going to be June 21st through 23rd with $720,000 in prizes.
That's money.
That's
That is
money.
money. First place is $100,000. That's
dollars.
That's money.
Yeah, and so this is going to be a mix
Could buy
of
so many
the
Rift books
Magic
with that.
Pro League. So people who have gotten their pro points, people who have worked through the actual paper side of it, and then these 16 qualifiers from the arena side. So it's really interesting. It's going to be really interesting to see. And we were talking about, are they going to play in paper? Are they
Yep.
going to play in arena? Are they going to move the deck? So it's cool to see that they're bringing in the arena side of it, and as Derek was mentioning, it sounds like they're trying to streamline the two halves of it into one funnel of the best players.
Yeah, like it seems like, you know, WotC wants to make people understand or feel that Paper Magic and Arena are both, you know, equally valid and viable.
Yeah.
And they, like, this is the Mythic Championship replaces the Pro Tour, I believe. And this is the kind of new model that they want people to feed into.
Yeah.
And this is the first time that we're seeing the arena players go right into it. So it's intriguing. It's exciting.
Well, one of the most interesting things is paper and arena are very different. Like when I went to play in the War of the Spark pre-release, I'd been doing a lot of arena, and coming back to paper, I'm like, oh shoot, I gotta remember. Can I play a land now? Did I play a land this turn? Whereas in arena, everything is like lit up if you've done it.
You know what you've
or
done.
like just knowing those subtleties of the rules. A lot of the time, arena will do that for you. So even just knowing, like, is this a legal target for this thing?
So do you think that arena players at the highest championship level will have a handicap that way, or do you think that if you're an arena player of that caliber, that you're still gonna know it?
It really depends, like, if they come into paper, like if they've been playing all this arena and they have to like jump into paper, it's a social experience. So this, like, looking across the table, there's more of a bluffing element to it. It's like there's a lot that goes into that, like, in-person play experience.
What I'm subtly imagining is it almost sounds like
It's like poker.
Well, it almost sounds like you are like an old sensei or an old teacher who was like, no, you can't just play with the new tools.
Yeah.
You got to play physically in person to learn all the details yourself and not let the computer do it for you. It's
Yeah,
You're like
yeah.
somebody
very
who
amusing in
slaps
my
the
mind.
calculator out of your hand and hands you an abacus.
I had like
I
a
would
training
almost-
montage.
It'd almost be interesting to me if, like, you can, and maybe this is what you said, Ben, maybe I misunderstood it, but like you can rise up through arena, but the last stages are in person. Like, to me,
Which
that
means
would,
you have to buy those cards physically in order to compete.
That's the question I have.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Well, also there's like
What if you don't?
there's arena in person and there's paper in person, because at PAX East they actually had it in person, so they were on stage in person, not facing off against each other, but like
e-gaming.
in the
Yeah,
just like
yeah.
with
Okay.
what Hearthstone does, you
Sure.
know, like has the people sitting across the table. So there's a
Sure.
lot of different ways they could do it. It's going to be really interesting to see what they decide to do with that.
I just think it's interesting that we're finally getting, you know, people who play digitally to be able to compete with those who don't.
Yeah.
Anything else digital interesting coming out in your world there, Derek?
Sure. So
Thought I skipped you because
Yeah.
I did.
Yep. I thought we were going to go with the Games Workshop segue, but you went with the digital one.
I
so
went
you
with the
threw me
digital
for a
one.
loop.
Everyone
Yeah.
was so confused.
It was all part of your
Yeah.
plan.
I threw you for a Tales from the
Christian's
Loop.
But-
master
Tails,
plan.
yeah, bring it back.
The interesting news there is Warhammer Underworlds, which, you know, I think the first one that came out was Shadespire. There was another big set. But the proper official name is Warhammer Underworlds, is getting a digital adaptation, and not just using the Warhammer license for a shooter or an RTS game or tower defense or anything like that, but a full digital version of the game, which I might be wrong, but I think it's the first time that GW has done that, at least in recent memory, with some of their modern rules. So it's really intriguing to me because, you know, I've been really enjoying playing Warhammer, but especially in trying to figure out whether I like a certain unit or just in practice. Again, all the stuff we've talked about with board games and things like that. Having a digital way to play it too would also be really fantastic. So, in case anybody isn't familiar, Warhammer Underworlds is like a grid-based, card-powered skirmish version of Age of Sigmar.
So no
it's
dice.
No, I think there are dice.
Okay.
No dice.
I haven't actually. The problem is I haven't played it directly.
Yeah. But it's
dice
more
are
focused
in
on the
your
cards
Yep.
driving
So
action.
there's a
than
deck
the-
building element of like you can use the cards to activate certain powers and do certain special moves with the characters. And I know that you can customize what you put in that deck. But like I've only basically seen the products where it's like here is this particular warband, which has tempted me because it's kind of like Kill Team where you can pay $30 to have a fully functional army warband to hop into the game with. Or whatever the price is for the different ones, but like the Skaven one and the Tzeentch one are very, very tempting. I just haven't had a chance to sit down and play it. But now that it's coming digital, that's exciting because more board game digital things are good. And then if this is a sign that
Eloquent.
Games Workshop, and isn't it? More is
game
good.
good.
But
More things good.
but it's also if it's a sign that Games Workshop is going to take that step with 40K eventually, with Kill Team or with Sigmar. I know a lot of people play those games already on Tabletop Simulator.
Yeah.
Where people have made the models and you just have to move them around. You have to remember all the rules. You're still using the rule book and all that kind of stuff because it doesn't do it for you. But that's a way to let a lot of people play who aren't near stores, who aren't near friends.
And it looks like they probably are going to go that direction. I mean, Games
hope so.
Workshop has been making big moves since the beginning of the year, and I don't think they're showing any signs of slowing down.
You know what's interesting too, and going back to I think last week where we talked about, and a little bit this week where we're talking about how digital is helping more folks get into the board gaming space, believe it or not. Derek, do you think that this is an easier way for folks to get into Warhammer?
It would be. I mean, like obviously, because presumably it's going to be cheaper than physically buying, assembling, painting, and playing the models. But
It's like a trial version, kind of, right?
yeah,
like,
in a lot of ways, yes. So I'm sure that the way that a digital miniatures game will interact with people playing that same game in the real world, I think will be a little bit different from how it works for board games and role-playing games even.
Sure.
Because like my experience with miniatures games has certainly been that so much of the richness of that game and the community is in the modeling and building and painting, which you don't get at all in the digital.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see how people interact with and engage with the game when it's effectively just the rules and the cool digital mini. So like I'm really
I
intrigued to
imagine
see
they'll
where that
throw
goes.
away their crappy armies and not play them anymore a lot sooner when they didn't spend 14 hours putting them together.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, so it certainly means like you'll have a situation where probably people will experiment with more armies, more different armies. They'll play different games, but how that will impact what they buy and paint and assemble physically, I don't know yet.
I mean, that would 100% inform what I was going to buy and paint because if I don't know where to start, I'm like, oh well, I know I like playing these guys. I'll go buy a set of those.
Absolutely, and I think Derek, you kind of touched on this too. Is I mean, in board games in general, it's like the experience is playing with other people in person, right? And while I love Arena, for example, it's super fun. Playing Magic with someone right across from you is a totally different animal, and and so much emotion and fun comes out of just doing that in person. So I think that this is going to help more folks get into the Warhammer hobby because they're like, wow, this is really cool. I'm gonna go check this out in IRL.
And we were talking about monetization about it too, about is this going to eat into the model? Do they have a fear? Because it seems like they've had fears in the past that this would cut into the actual purchasing of the minis and play and all the stuff that goes along with that. It could potentially. I think that Arena is probably cut a little bit into paper Magic. There's for me, for example, like I was playing a lot more paper Magic before I started playing Arena. But then there is things like you're talking about the painting skins, right? Like put a whole skin on there, or maybe like a tool to like go in and paint it.
They could have been concerned about kind of cannibalizing their own construction and painting market, but it also could have just been that they may have had the perspective that people weren't interested in the mechanics of the game in a digital environment divorced from that person-to-person interaction and divorced from the assembly and painting. So that could have been their stance, and now they may be thinking, well, there are a lot more other digital board games coming out. Magic is doing very well.
Maybe we should
and
take
with the
down some of
tabletop
these
simulator.
horrible walls. Keep people out of our game.
People are clearly engaging with what traditionally have been called like really boring or simple mechanics because they have to be to have the tabletop game move at a decent pace. So if they see that people are engaging with that, maybe that was their perspective, and that was why they didn't want to make it digital. I don't know. So I'm excited to see how it goes, because
Absolutely.
Underworld seems to have been doing pretty well. It seems to have kind of grown a competitive scene around it, and I love the Games Workshop games that are using the models, using the IPs, but are low price point to entry and are like self-contained. So it does give you the ability to be like, for years I've kind of wanted to play this. All right, fine, I'll buy one box of minis and get in. And like, that's what got me in. Is there was
one digital box, please.
Yep.
I'll take 2.
One of each. There's only like 3 or 4 types, right? Of the different...
Just 3 or 4.
Just 3 or 4, and then you're done.
Handful.
Then you can move on
Very
to the
simple.
future.
Ooh.
I know.
Ooh,
See what I
what's in
did
the
there?
future?
I did see what
To
you did
the
there.
future. What's in the future?
Yeah.
Well,
Magic.
coming up real soon here. The Shadowrun 6th edition has been announced.
Wait, what game is that? Wait, oh, it's the game with the
Skull and the Horns.
The skull with the horns.
Skull with the Horns. That's right.
Seattle.
The one you can't remember the name of ever.
That one.
That's what's coming out. Shadowrun 6th edition, 6th World. Has just been announced. It's very, very exciting. It's a cyberpunk fantasy game if you're not familiar with it.
This is its 30th anniversary.
Yes. I played first edition of this, so this is very exciting for me. This is the first game I ever truly broke.
Sure.
I think we were joking
In
about
a
that
good
earlier.
way.
Yeah, we were joking about how maybe Rifts but no, Rifts was already broken.
Rifts was
to begin
already
with,
designed to
so.
be broken. This game was not. This game was designed to be fast-paced, and you roll a bunch of dice and maybe you die in one shot, but you're elves and dwarves and magic, but also cybernetics and the future and huge corporate interests.
future.
The future. Not space though.
Not no.
Just-
Not
just
Space,
the
space is
future.
only for rich people.
Right, space is only for rich people. And
So
Here.
that part they got right.
that is
Just
so
like
true.
that movie with Matt
So
Damon.
the new
thing.
system has obviously got a lot of changes coming to it. Every 5 or 6 years, they tend to put out a new edition of this. In fact, pretty much every 5 years, since it's the 6th edition and its 30th anniversary. Just did math in my head. You're welcome. Now you don't have to do it yourself at home. But they are going to be building the new system around the Edge feature that they introduced in what I want to say 4th edition. I think they've once again further simplified decking, which in the old days required basically an entire other game session to do. Now you can just take care of it at the table with everybody else. You don't have to feel bad for your group about playing a decker anymore, which is nice. They've taken away the force rating from spells, which was just something that made spells more complicated anyway. So let's
Nice.
get rid of that. And apparently they're making big changes to the initiative system, which is one of the things I've always loved about the game, is the initiative system. So, you might as well change it. The thing is, with Shadowrun fans, it's kind of hit or miss. These new editions come out once every 5 or 6 years.
Shadowrun fans.
Yeah, we do exist.
No, I know, but I
It's
feel
like
like
they're-
it's RPG fans in general. Like the new edition of anything, no one ever likes it.
They're grabbing
right?
stuff out of the bag,
man.
like, oh, let's
People
change
were really
this.
high on
Let's
5th
change
edition, I think, for the
this.
most part. And they've pushed out, it's got
Yep.
a lot less detractors now that people have actually played it. With Shadowrun, you're not going to get that. There is going to be an aspect of this game that you probably hate. That's just the nature of Shadowrun, guys. Fact is, the world is really fun to play and the characters are really fun to play, and you get to drive around in fast cars and shoot things with fireballs. What's really not to love? So you can get over a bad mechanic that you don't love. Just check out the new edition. You can get the starter set starting at Origins, so it's going to be kind of a beginner's box kind of thing.
It's going to have pre-generated characters, I believe an adventure, some of the core simple rules. So, something to give people a chance to try it out and see how it plays.
An appetizer, if you will.
Aperitif. One of the other things that I think is kind of exciting about the game is that we're going to get that full release at Gen Con. So
Yep.
I'm going to have a fan wait in line for me. And
If you want to be that fan, sign up right now.
Get on the
Get one
list.
for yourself too.
one of the cool things that they're doing that they haven't done in quite a few years is that they're kind of starting up their whole fiction line again, releasing several small novellas to go out to coincide with the new products, bringing the world of Shadowrun.
Yeah, so
kind of-
for people who aren't familiar, Shadowrun was one of those RPGs in the 90s that had a huge novel line behind it. So there were people who were huge diehard Shadowrun fans who never bought the role-playing books, never played the games. They just read the novels and were just immersed in the stories in the world.
or got disappointed in the video game. which was also a big possibility.
Yeah, so it's exciting to see that come back though, because they haven't had that support for the past couple editions, as far as I'm aware of. So announcing that they're going to be, releasing a whole bunch more fiction is exciting to me.
Well, it's a great entry point if you can read some of the books and get a taste for the world.
Because that world is so rich and addictive.
Yeah, get the mechanics through just entering into it instead of having to just dive in.
So they've got the beginner box at Origins. There's the full release of Gen Con.
Yes.
But then the other thing is they've announced kind of a timeline of when more details are going to come out. So it seems like they have a pretty solid
plan,
rollout plan.
much the way 5th edition D&D did, where they're they're going to release things on an actual scheduled timeline on the dates that they're supposed to come out.
So May 1st was the announcement. May 8th is a product overview. So I guess they're going to go into some more details about that. May 15th is the developer overview. Presumably we'll have some commentary from the developers about what their goals were, what they're trying to accomplish, some of the mechanics maybe that they're trying to do that with. The 22nd is the setting overview. Again, we've talked about how much we love the setting. And then that's the fiction announcement too. So whatever their fiction plan is will be confirmed at that point.
And I'm going to be listening intently. The fiction is in need of a modern update with a lot of the technology that we have today is surpassing some of the futuristic technology that we had in first edition Shadowrun.
Education device.
Cyberpunk is alternate history at this point.
That's true. That's true.
It's steampunk for people who like the internet.
So meta.
Yeah, that's a good comparison, actually.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the other kind of hit points or dates, May the 29th, they have the developer Q&A. Presumably, people will have more questions at that point. They'll have had time to digest things, maybe get some feedback to the developers. June 5th is the Rigger dossier, which I found really interesting because if anybody's not familiar, Riggers are one of the archetypes. They don't strictly have classes, but it's one of the kind of iconic roles that you would play. And the Rigger is somebody who interacts directly with a vehicle or a drone. They basically put their consciousness in it, and then they're just super good drivers.
The car.
Nice.
Become the car. Isn't that like Transformers?
All of my friends
Not
who
you are
played
the car.
when I was trying to get people to play when I was younger, the non-role players were always very attracted to the Rigger.
It's more like Pacific Rim, where you're piloting the giant robot.
Yeah.
Except it's a car.
Yeah.
Just a regular ass car.
Or a motorcycle or a drone.
Just like an Oldsmobile.
A newsmobile. Anyway, so, but it's interesting that the Rigger is the only one they call out on their timeline. And I wonder if that's just because Riggers have kind of historically been a little underserved, or it's hard to figure out how to fit them into the story.
Yeah, they're good for getting you to and from the adventure. Outside of that, I mean, you don't bring them inside. They always want to stay in the car.
Bring the car inside.
All my powers are here.
And that's why they push the drones a lot. At some later editions.
The problem is the drones were kind of dumb. I mean, they're cute and they can do stuff, but compared to being the flying tank guy, that just doesn't.
I don't know. I would be happy to play the Rigger who has a swarm of drones around him. It could be cool.
And you could make deliveries.
See,
there you go.
Yeah.
See, now you're getting into the Shadowrun mindset.
Congratulations.
How can we corporatize and monetize this?
Your badass future character is an Amazon delivery boy.
See, this is the setting. This is the richness of Shadowrun. He's an Amazon delivery boy who's a troll.
And not like an internet troll, but like horns and doesn't like fire.
But on the internet.
But internet troll.
June 12th is the preview at Origins. So it sounds like they also have some pretty big plans at Origins. So I can't wait to check that out too.
All right. Well, I have breaking news.
Do you? I was really hoping you would.
Yeah.
Tell me.
Chat, you may have seen me on my phone. I'm so super unprofessional, but I was in communique with Gen Con HQ, who has given me the 100% go-ahead to talk about Project Galileo.
Was that the name of it?
Yeah.
So the new Xbox?
You got it. Yeah. No. So internally we called it Project Galileo over the past year, and it's the title is a hint to what it is.
So if somebody asks too many questions about it, you murder them?
No, we just house arrest.
we keep them in. So Project Galileo, I know we've got a few folks on chat here to know specifically about it. So why don't we go ahead and dig in? So,
But then they'll be the only ones who know.
well, we actually have a press
Exclusive.
release shipping right now.
Okay, well, let's tell them first.
And a newsletter shipping very shortly too. So if you aren't signed up for the Gen Con newsletter, go ahead and do that right now. GenCon.com, connect dropdown, sign up for the mailing list, and you will get the full details on Pop-Up Gen Con. Yeah.
Gen Con.
So
We ship you a book, you open it up. And
yes, well, it's a book.
castle
Very
inside?
exciting.
Ooh,
Yeah.
it's a pop-up model of Indianapolis.
Yeah, it has a little
Thanks.
ICC.
Oh, there's the steak and shake.
Yeah, you got it. We're very excited about this initiative. No, really, we are. We are. So we heard you. You know, a lot of folks come to us every year and say, you know, especially on social media, which, you know, if you don't know, I manage Gen Con social media accounts, and I see all of your comments. I see all of them. It breaks my heart when folks say, you know, Gen Con is great. I love it, but it's just not in the cards for me to make it out. And so we decided to bring the Gen Con experience to you, to your friendly local game store. So this is the pilot year of the program. So we're just putting our toes in. You know, it's don't expect that you'll be completely blown away, but we are hoping to bring Pop-Up Gen Con to 40. Well, we are bringing Pop-Up Gen Con to 40 game stores across the United States and 2 in the UK. So this is very exciting. Not only will you be able to demo and preview games releasing that day from Gen Con,
So crazy.
yeah, you'll be able to pre-order them at that moment as well. So most
And
of
you'll
the time,
be waiting in much smaller lines
Yeah.
to play these games.
we don't have lines at Gen Con. That's the whole thing about Gen Con.
Right, there are no actual lines. There are sometimes waiting lists.
There are like waiting lists, yeah. So yeah, we're very excited about this news. So you'll be able to go to your friendly local game store, hop in on a demo of a game that just released at Gen Con, and Pop-Up Gen Con runs. We're aiming for the Saturday of Gen Con, so that's going to be August 3rd. But it'll be up to your game store to decide if they're able to support multiple days as well. So more information is coming in the future, including a retailer list.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
And what games will be included as well. So we're really excited about this. Like I said, we're partnering with Alliance Game Distributors to bring these brand new games
Nice.
that like literally launch at Gen Con
That is so cool.
to your friendly local game store.
It's really exciting, especially having gone to a bunch of different conventions and also having worked at a friendly local game store. A lot of these conventions kind of hold it a little close, like they play on that exclusivity and like, oh, you can't go there, the FOMO, right? It's all like all about fear of missing out on these awesome games. Like it's not very accessible, right? There's a lot of people who just for whatever reason can't get out there, like for a whole host of different reasons. And so to be able to bring this experience to those people, I think is amazing. I'm very excited for this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do we want to talk about how they can sign up and get badges and stuff like that?
So that information will be forthcoming.
Okay.
So yeah, sign up for the newsletter. I believe Jordan just posted the link in there in chat to stay up to date. You know, and this is just our initial announcement. We've got more coming down the line, and you know, hopefully for Pop-Up Gen Con 2020 and beyond, we can make an even grander Gen Con experience with events, just like we
So-
have at Gen Con Indy.
So if you end up going to Pop-Up Gen Con, then tell us directly how you enjoyed it,
Absolutely.
how it went, what you liked about it, what other kind of elements of Gen Con you would like to see brought to your local game store, so then we can work on that.
Yeah, and like I said, it's the pilot year, so we decided on let's put as many new games in people's hands as possible.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you know, you're waiting until the retail cycle, which might be September, but it might also be a
could be-
year.
It might be
years.
December.
Yeah.
It might
Yeah.
be the following August. It
Right.
depends
That
on the
was
company.
The really interesting thing about the release schedule. It's like the people who go to conventions have a much different perception of when games come out. It's like, oh, Azul, I played that at I bought it at Gen Con, and someone at a retail store, you know, they might get in a couple copies, but you might not see that game in
Right.
regular stock for a year or more. So
Right.
that's really cool.
It is very exciting. So that was my breaking news. We can move on.
That is excellent breaking news, though. I was really happy to hear it. Before we move on to bundles, I would just like to, this story, First of all, I've always been very, very amused by the fact that people become, like, they're regular people, they do good at their job, but then they somehow become a professional athlete and turn into a douche. So I'm glad that that extends even to both the esports and trading card game communities as well. Obviously, you know, it's not people beating people up and stuff like that. This is but this is kind of a big deal for me.
Yeah.
Like,
I know you were very surprised about this.
It's not that I was surprised. I just think that the idea of scandal. There was a professional Magic player, for those of you who don't know, who was disqualified from a tournament for cheating, and it would not be that big of news, except it's one of the best players in the world.
Yes.
One of the most famous Magic players, specifically. 2-time Player of the Year, member of the Hall of Fame, won the World Cup 2 years ago.
Yeah, this is Yuya Watanabe. And one of the things about this person is they're salaried too. So for a lot, like, it's a tough world. I mean, making it in professional esports, making it like a professional card game player, even, I don't necessarily want to compare it to athletics, but a lot of, like, the prize pools are, like, not huge. You're doing a lot of traveling. Like, you're really scrabbling to be able to support yourself with this. But this person was actually salaried. Yeah.
Well, what did they do?
Okay, so the story goes, they were in the middle of a game, finished up, didn't like the way it went, re-sleeved their entire deck for superstition reasons. The deck was checked and checked and checked again, and it was found that a couple of his cards, specifically all of the same card, were marked on the back of the sleeve.
Well, so like he a little indentation in the corner.
Or whatever it was, you know? I mean, maybe it's legit, maybe it's not. I'm thinking it probably is. He thought he was being clever. Why did he need the win?
Yeah.
I mean, was it just pride? Does he make the same if he loses as if he wins, like a professional athlete?
Yeah. Well, the salary is the salary. You know, there's obviously the prize pools that go along with it, but I think a lot of it is the ego and just the price of loss or success. I mean, again, with a game like this, there is a lot of swinginess to it. I know of people who've, like, top-aided year after year and just never won a tournament. So at a certain point, there's a lot of psychological stuff going on there for just, like, I just want to be that winner that one time. Like, because they're people.
I mean,
grabbing chasing that dragon, going for that feeling one more time. I mean,
it's a crazy doping scandal.
This is a crazy doping. This is exactly what happens to professional athletes. You know, esports players, for the most part, just get kicked off of tournaments for saying racist stuff. But
you're not wrong.
I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
I wish I was.
Yeah.
But Magic has got, I mean, it's such a strong and large community. And this guy was fairly well respected in it. I mean, he's the guy.
Yep.
And I don't know. It's just like it reminds me of a bicycle guy, a Lance Armstrong. You know, like here he was,
bicycle
guy,
horn, skull, horns,
Seattle.
really, really screwed over Sheryl Crow. You know the guy.
Well, another thing is, I think, because I've thought about it recently, like someone had mentioned cheating in a podcast or something. I was like, no, I don't play with cheaters. Like, I've never. Like,
but do you?
Well, yeah. In the gaming space, like, part of this Magic circle is, like, taking on the rules. And people have said stories of someone, like, I guess hiding Monopoly money or whatever. But in the modern games that we play, like hiding cubes or something, like, I've never had an experience where I've observed someone cheating at a game. It's just so verboten. Yeah. Like, just the idea is reprehensible.
Especially on a professional level.
Yeah.
And at a professional level, it's just like surprising and not at the same time, right? And like we don't know, right, if this actually happened. It seems like it did, but at the same time, it's just like, why?
The guy re-sleeved his deck in the middle of a game.
Yeah, I mean, I know how it looks.
Yeah.
But, you know, again, like, why?
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know, it's not good.
That's very weird. And we need to actually get moving on because we still have quite a bit to get through, and I don't want to miss Kickstarters today. Okay. So I'm going to very, very quickly go through our bundles today. This week we have a bundle of holding called the Neoclassical Geek Revival.
Not Greek Revival.
Right. It is a geek revival.
My notes.
I double-checked and triple-checked, and it almost got said Greek on the air. But these are basically OSR games. So that's old school Renaissance, old school revival. Basically, very, very, very basic RPGs. A lot of these are designed as one-shots. They're all designed by the same fellow, it looks like.
For this bundle, yeah.
For this bundle, yes. A man named Zarkov Kowalski, who sounds like a BattleTech villain, as I said. So what is available is, of course, the core book, right? The new neoclassical geek revival core book, along with the supplements, Temple of Lies, Hark, a Wizard, Rampaging Monster, Gem Prison Zardax, and the Gnomes of Levny.
It sounds like a random word generator.
A little bit.
It really does. That's the beauty of
Random
fantasy.
But I think a lot of that is like that's
Fantasy
kind
is
of
the
the
bane of
magic
spell
of a lot of
check.
OSR stuff.
Yeah,
Is like
yeah.
here is a bunch of random weird things. Find the story in it.
Yeah.
You know, don't you're not building a story. You're not spending plot points. You're not trying to like craft what you think this thing should go through. You're just like, let's do some weird stuff, and an amazing story is going to come out of that.
Nice.
So that's your $6 right there. You want to pay the extra, you also get City of Foes, Lost in the Wilderness, Underwater something.
Under the sea,
Waterless Sea.
Yeah,
Under the Waterless Sea,
I
that's what
remember
it's
that
called.
one, 'cause I was
The
like-
Price of Evil and Dawn in Yon Forest. Which
The holiday.
it's like a
festive.
holidays festive adventure. Obviously, it's a good deal just because you're getting so much for so little. Some of these might be up your alley, some of them not. If you're into old school gaming, maybe give it a check out.
Yeah.
And that's as far as I'm taking bundles today because it's time to move on to Kickstarters, and I'm a little bit excited about it. So I'm going to pass things over to our Kickstarter queen, Derek. Here he is.
Allow me to tell you
Just
how
take
you're
the
going to
rest
spend.
of the time
Yep.
to do this next one, and then.
Yep. Allow me to tell you
let me get out my
how you're
wallet.
going to spend your money this week. So, the first one, somebody can probably correct my pronunciation, but I believe it's Maquis. It has a couple days left, and it's a solo game about resisting the Nazi occupation in France. And it's a worker placement game, and it has all the normal trappings of a worker placement game. You're gathering resources, you're spending them to improve things, you can do this other thing. But it's a very, I hesitate to say cute, but a very like slickly designed, because it's not cute the way that like the other
The
Kickstarters
Nazi
are.
occupation of France was cute.
But it's not cute in the way that like the cats have been cute. Like it's just it's there's something about the design that I think really just is simple and clean and
Yeah.
effective.
Yeah.
And it's relatively small footprint. And solo games in particular seem to, I don't know if they've been rising out of the rise of cooperative games, but they seem to be getting more attention and growing a little bit more. So I thought it would be worthwhile to note one so that people can go check it out and see if they want to kind of get into that experience.
It's also
That's cool.
easier to play a solo game. I've been trying to ramp up my board game playing recently for educational purposes to play some more games that are on that list that I want to get through. And a lot of it is just like who has this game, especially if it's an older game, getting the people. We all know the scheduling thing. So having a solo board game comes from a lot of the single player video game traditions as well. So it's nice just to have some of those options. To play
Well, it's
through.
something that has come up in a lot of Kickstarters that it surprised me, just because I hadn't really considered, I think, the solo game market a whole lot.
Yeah.
Because I think when I was a kid, if I didn't have people to play a game with, I would read a book. Like it was just a different activity for me. But a lot of the Kickstarters that got really successful, I saw lots of people requesting solo modes.
Yeah.
Especially for co-op games. Requesting a solo mode. Like you could play Pandemic just by playing all the roles, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
Or at least an AI mode, right?
Sure,
So that you
sure.
have another player to play against. Or
The pretend friend mode, my favorite.
Pretend friend.
So
don't know
this game
anyone.
seemed like a really interesting kind of example of that, which I thought people would be intrigued by. And then next, I almost feel like I should just hand this over to you.
No, man, this is your job. You just do
Okay,
this.
all right. So there's
gonna be okay.
a new Riffs for Savage Worlds Kickstarter, American Armageddon. You have 3 days left to share in his excitement. It's basically the core of this campaign is 3 new books covering like all the kind of stuff around the weirdness of North America. I think there's the dinosaur swamps of Florida. There's the vampire kingdoms of Mexico. There's the coalition in Chi-Town.
It's all there, baby.
One of each,
Yep.
right?
So there's
all there.
there's one book about Federation of Magic and some of the magic stuff. There's another book about evil monsters, the Zitikic Empire
I'm
up
so
in
in on
Canada.
this.
It's a ticket.
Christian.
Don't try
Yeah,
to
no,
spell
of course you are, because it's awesome.
I have never played it, never even heard of it outside of this show, and
It's a
I
special
am
time.
so in on Rifts.
Yes, let's all play together.
Is that going to be the show we launch in the fall? Is we play Rifts?
So one of the best things about this campaign is Savage Worlds came out with a brand new edition this year, which isn't even technically in print yet. If you back the Kickstarter, you're going to have access to it already. What this does is not only put out these 3 new world books, but it updates the first 3 core books to the new set. So if you were to go all in on the Kickstarter, you can get print editions of all 6 of these books.
So how different is the new edition? Because that was something that I hadn't actually realized that Savage World had changed.
It has, and for the better. It's actually become more streamlined and even more easy to play while still giving you all the customizable benefits. They've gotten rid of some of the mechanics that don't work. The charisma mechanic, for example, is just completely done away with, and they now just add and subtract from your persuasion rolls. So it's just little things like that that make the game move a little bit more smoothly.
So it's not like a whole new edition. Is it like 3.5-ish level?
Yeah, because they're condensing a lot.
Okay.
I consider it more like Pathfinder to 3.0.
Okay.
Because they've condensed these skills, like your running, climbing, and throwing are now all athletics.
Okay.
And just little things like that that really make a lot of sense. Plus the addition of what they call common knowledge or core skills now, where every player, regardless of their background, has these 5 skills at least at a D4 because everybody knows how to drive a car in 1992 or whatever.
Nice.
And it's made for ease of play. It's updated the books, and I've already looked at what changes they've made. It's fixed a lot of the things that were wrong with the first edition of Rifts, and the stuff that they're adding in these 3 new books, more iconic frameworks, which are kind of the OCC, your classes. New races, new weapons, more power armor, new dragon hatchlings. The big box.
That all sounds
Shiny and
extremely.
The big
extremely
box comes
Rifts.
with
That's all extremely
cards and
Rifts.
bennies and a big box set. It's gonna be so cool. Plus, because the Kickstarter is still open, they're actually unlocking social media stretch goals now. So if you like and share, more things get open. So it's
More.
So
just buy the damn game.
I'm just so entertained that Derek was like, I'm just going to hand this over to you, Christian. And Christian was like, no, Derek.
Yep.
You are the Kickstarter queen. You do this.
I couldn't help it, man.
And then 15 seconds.
He missed important information.
But wait.
Yeah, the dragon hatchling.
I knew it was gonna
I kept
happen.
my volume down as much as I could. I would like a thank you.
I think the other really kind of important note of the Kickstarter is they have confirmed that they're going to continue doing more projects to bring more Rift material. Like
More
it really,
Rifts, more
it
Rifts,
really shot me
more
right
Rifts.
in the nostalgia heart when they had a shot of a bunch of the world books that I like.
South
England
America too,
and
England.
Triax and the NGR, all the kind of stuff that I had spent so much time with as a kid.
So they're a little less traditionally on Kickstarter, so now they're kind of opening the floodgates, it sounds like.
Well, what they're doing is instead of needing all this money to actually publish the book, they have it. The book is ready to go.
Christian
to print.
gave it to them.
Yeah.
He was like, I did this for you.
No. The book is ready to go to print, and they were going to publish it whether or not the Kickstarter was successful.
Yeah.
That was always their plan. They're using Kickstarter as a way to get the word out about their amazing game.
Nice.
And succeeding. I am not in any way biased. Let's be clear.
You backed this
It's
day
literally,
one, right?
Yes, I did. It is
zero.
literally like
Day
my
zero.
favorite RPG with my favorite old school IP mashed together in something that's actually playable. So yeah, I'm totally down for this.
Nice.
So other Kickstarters.
I don't know how
Wow,
we
how
can
do you
follow that up.
top
Yeah.
that?
Are there
Yeah,
other Kickstarters?
There is. There's The Hunters
Christian's done.
AD 2114, English and Polish edition. So this was just really neat because it's one of those very classic Kickstarter board games.
Kickstarter with a capital K.
Yeah, the hashtag Kickstarter game.
Yep. This is a Kickstarter board game.
We talked about these last week.
Yep. It's got 54 minis, 767 cards, 420 other elements. So like
I
counters
know
and
all
tokens
about
and stuff.
420 elements. Trust me.
I figured. So.
For $100 too, which seems.
Well, $100. I mean, for that's kind of what a lot of these Kickstarter board games are at. Is
Yeah.
$100 for the entry
A lot of
point.
stuff. Yeah.
It is. But the thing that really kind of made it stand out for me is the monsters remind me a lot of Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yeah.
Because they're robotic animal type monsters that you're hunting. The setting is a little more classically Mad Maxy, post-apocalyptic-y, as opposed to the kind of resurgent tribalism that Horizon Zero Dawn has. But it was just intriguing.
Resurgent tribalism.
They have, at least in Horizon Zero Dawn, very cute, like metal robot panther with like little robot panther kittens, and then they eat your face.
I can't confirm Robot Panther, but there was Robo Ape. And so, like, you pick a character class, and you have a bunch of ability. You have like a player board. I believe you kind of build communally with the other players a home base that you can upgrade. So there's a lot of elements like that, and then
So it's like
really
an
cool
MMO.
base. Sure. more Kickstarter enhanced adventure board game.
Well, if you want
Speaking-
to check that out, that's 4 days left, right?
Yep.
Okay. And links in the chat.
Solid gold minis, everyone.
Speaking
Made that
of Kickstarter board games, Cthulhu Wars, the Demon Sultan.
Is that not Damon?
It depends on. Usually, you just say demon. It's just it's,
Daemon?
You can say it however you want.
Thank you.
it's the dramatic English way to spell it.
It's a
But
letter that we don't have in
It
our
makes it look
alphabet
somehow more
anymore.
this is bringing Azathoth, the blind idiot god, to Cthulhu Wars.
Sorry.
If you're a Cthulhu fan, you're like, yep. If you're not a Cthulhu fan, you're like, what the hell?
The blind idiot
Idiot
god. I love it.
Yep.
Bayman. Valid Force says Damon, more like Bayman.
All right.
So Cthulhu Wars was one of the really big, I think, first huge Kickstarter successes. It was designed by Sandy Peterson, called Cthulhu fame and all that. And it was a large territory control game where you were playing one of the great old ones, or one of these horrible Lovecraftian monsters taking over the planet. And
Like
now
you do.
you get to play
That's what
Azathoth.
does.
Do you also have to play the idiot cult members that follow said old
Yes.
god?
Yes, you do.
And I feel like now we're back to the Jurassic Park game where we get to play the park visitors.
Yeah.
Yep.
Same thing.
So
Fodder.
Cthulhu Wars was hugely successful. It's one of those like luxury board games. Before Gloomhaven, it was one of the highest priced board games for a while there. But a number of the expansions have gone out of print. So part of this Kickstarter is to let backers vote on which expansions they want to bring back into print. I think this is also the only way that you can get the April 1st Fools cat faction expansion that they had for one day.
I'm
Now
sorry,
you're speaking
what?
my language.
Yeah.
There's a cat expansion.
on.
Why the hell didn't you open with that?
Because it was a Kickstarter that was available for one day, which is so
Oh.
it didn't come up in here. But now you can get it through this, I believe.
Wow. Okay.
The other interesting thing is this is the last Kickstarter for Cthulhu Wars. They're saying that they're not letting the game go out of print, but some expansions probably will kind of cycle in and out of print. But they said this is the last Kickstarter project for it. So if you've been a little bit on the fence, this might be your last chance to get in easily.
All right.
Speaking of Lovecraftian horrors, the next one is a little bit of an interesting thing. This has 6 days left. This is Hellraiser-inspired puzzle boxes and deck boxes for like Magic and stuff like that. It's designed for like Commander, so you can bring your tokens, your 100-card deck, things like that. They're actually pretty big, but they look gorgeous.
Yeah.
And like the deluxe ones have magnets in them, so they stay shut.
magnets.
But apparently there's also like puzzle box versions that the creator showed some of them off because it's a guy in his workshop,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
Very kind of like low scale, but he just showed them off and he's like, it's a puzzle. I'm not telling you how to solve it, but there's 4 of them, so you can get what you want.
And one of them is unsolvable. Spoiler alert. But he says this on the Kickstarter. You can get the one that you can't actually open.
Oh.
So I guess that's like
Why
a
would you
joke.
do that?
You give it to your friends.
it's
and watch
Hellraiser.
them
That's rude.
Maybe he just messed up a few, and he's like, no, these are bonus content.
Yeah.
He
I love it.
It was very amusing. And the number of times he was specifically talking about how he designed the puzzles to be just excruciating enough to get that Hellraiser feel, but then solvable. So it's very neat. But
Is
if
this
you
excruciating as Hellraiser 3?
is anything?
It just sounds
That's the
painful.
right answer, Derek.
Enough for him. I mean, for people who aren't professional puzzle box builders.
It is not hands that bring us, but desire.
So if you
Tip.
like Hellraiser, like he might, and you like Magic, which many of you might, then these are really, really neat.
Yeah.
So another project is, you want to say it for me?
For the dungeon!
Oh, God.
Sorry, headphones.
Oh,
I don't think
Christian.
saying it after the fact is not super helpful for them.
Oh yeah, but I mean, we're not friends.
But then
Sure, okay.
you can't say before because it's
So, this has 6 days left. This is an RPG about playing the incompetent, bumbling minions who are attempting to
Ooh.
protect the dungeon
Yeah.
from the adventurers. So you're playing the kobold who will probably end up killing themselves
Well, so
trying to
there's a
stop the
few of these.
adventurers.
Like Kobolds Ate My Baby is another one that.
Kind of like Kobolds Ate My Baby is more like King Torg, All Hail King Torg. Sends you out to go get something for him. Like it's ridiculous.
yeah.
But
So this
there's
actually
definitely a
reminds me of,
genre
like,
of it.
Bargain Quest. Y'all ever play Bargain
Yeah,
Quest?
in the idea that it's taking the classic D&D trope
Yeah.
and you're playing
Yeah.
a different side of it, definitely.
Yeah.
It reminds me of just the wolf and sheepdog cartoons.
Sure.
Morning, Sam. Morning, Ralph.
So
then they kill
apparently,
each other all day?
in this one, critical failures are a huge part of it because you are playing the incompetent minion. So a big part of it is critically failing and then you having to write what lesson your minion learned
That
from
sounds
their
really
horrible
fun.
mistake.
I like that.
So the next project is another blast from the past. This is 7 days left. This is Relics, a game of angels. So some of you might remember a game back from the 90s where you played angels or demons.
Inominy.
Yep, and there was one artist who happened to do pretty much all of the initial art for that game. It
was cool
Very,
art.
very iconic. He seems to be returning, providing the art for a new game about playing angels and demons called Relics, where it seems like God is absent, the angels and the demons are beginning to regain some of their memories, some of their powers. It has that classic art. It's using a tarot-based system that was the fugue system that was used in James Wallace's Las Vegas, which was also kickstarted before. So you can back and get kind of what seems to be a dose of that nostalgia from Inomine with a more storytelling-y system where you kind of learn, discover, or create your character's backstory in play. And you can get a tarot deck with the art from Dan Smith. If anybody remembers the Smith autograph on the art, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you played Inomine, you know. If you didn't, you'll be like, what?
Smith.
It's a thing.
It's a thing.
So it seems really exciting because again, it's just a reimagining, if not a re-releasing. And then the final Kickstarter is Paradise Lost. So this is
Not the vocabulary or the English book that we were supposed to read
No, you
back in college.
didn't read that?
I don't think I read that.
I did. Anyway, no, not that.
Okay.
This is a
That's what I
story. It
think
has
you
7 days left. This is a story about how the Ice Witch, Water Queen, Water Witch, depending on what part of the Kickstarter you're reading, has stolen all of the stories and fables of the world so that she can recraft the world where there's no hope and imagination and passion.
So she's Walt Disney?
Yes, but you get to play all Walt Disney's characters, then going and fighting to bring that back out. So this is pulling from like Greek myth, Grimm's fairy tales. You could play Hercules and Red Riding Hood going and fighting the Medusa and I don't know, the Three Little Pigs or something like that.
all
So this
notably
sounds very
public
much to me
domain.
like Fables.
Yes.
The comic.
Yep. Seems like a board game version of that. It has minis for the heroes. It has a lot of cards for everything else. If you like playing kind of with those classic monsters and the fables and stuff like that, and kind of mixing them together, this seems like this kind of might be up your alley.
This is, I think, like the second or third game that we've talked about on this show, where we just take a bunch of public domain characters and throw them together and
I
let
see
them have
Alice
adventures
in
together. And I
Wonderland
couldn't love it
there.
anymore. It's wonderful.
Because
And now it's a
Restoration Games was the last. Like they're releasing the Heroescape remodel, whose name escapes me now.
Well, I've been
Oh, wasn't
shipping Jack the
Unmatched
Giant
on it
Killer and
Yes,
Snow White for
Unmatched.
years.
Yep, Unmatched is the name of the game.
Yeah.
With the gorgeous graphic design and everything.
All
And
right.
that is it for Kickstarter.
Thank you, Kickstarter Queen.
Yeah, that was great. And it looks like that's actually all the time we've got today
Yeah.
for TableTakes. Thank you for joining us. We are going to be back next Friday at the same time. This has been TableTakes presented by Gen Con. My name's Christian. This is Kristen. That's Emma. And that's Derek. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you next time.
See ya.